Well, welcome back to the podcast here, the Washington Football Maniacs podcast. My name is Greg Sykes, and this channel is dedicated to the Washington Commanders. If you're down with that, make sure you have subscribed, especially to any of the podcast apps that you have out there that you're listening to this, or if you're watching us on YouTube. Make sure you are supporting us, and also make sure you hit that notification bell on YouTube so you will know when other videos are coming out. So this video, we're going to talk. You're going to think that must be slow news, but hey, this is still something that I think that is on a lot of people's minds. I think it's probably still on the ownership's minds as well. We're going to talk about the team name. So the team name here, now, I know a lot of people are gotten so sick and tired of it, and they're like, look, it's already been done. We're the Washington Commanders now. It's going to stay like that forever, so why are you even wanting to reopen this? And the thing is that I don't think it was ever actually closed. I think that if you took a poll right now, you would find out that a lot of Washington fans are just plain out, they hate the name. And then you got a lot who are just indifferent, who don't care. And then you got some who, honestly, who will like it no matter what. You know, they are going to look at the bright side on everything, and they feel like as long as we win Super Bowls, it doesn't matter what we're called, which I think a lot of us are kind of like that. But I think in general, I think people really, I think they just really would rather have a name that they feel proud of. And heck, there's a lot of people who are going to be Washington Redskins no matter what. And I will say that probably with those people, you're probably not going to be successful in getting the name back. I think that name is not going to be around. And honestly, Josh Harris has already pretty much came out and said that that is not going to be a name that comes back to the Washington football team, but he never said that we're going to stick with Commanders. I think he's had plenty of opportunities where he could have came out and said, you know what, our name is the Commanders, and we're going to stick with that, and case is closed. Once we start winning, you won't care what the name is. As long as we're winning Super Bowls, you're going to cheer for us, even if we were called the Washington Generals or something like that. And there's probably a sec out there who's like, yeah, that's what I wanted, was the Washington Generals. But, having said all that, I think there's still a strong possibility that we go through another rebrand. And I think that this time around, if we do go through another rebrand, then you're probably going to wind up looking at what the fans want more. And ultimately, though, what's most marketable, because this is a business. And when it comes down to business, you're going to pick what's going to make you the most money. And now there was something that came out recently that said that Commanders have actually been extremely profitable for the Washington franchise since the rename. And so if that's the case, if the franchise is continuing to be profitable with being called the Washington Commanders, then I hate to say, but it may be that you're going to have to be happy and stick with Commanders for the long haul, because if they're making money off of that, then it's going to be very hard to consider them moving on from that name. However, I think there's still some talk of it, and as long as that we still have some talk with it, there will be a chance that people still have the hopes that you're going to have Washington Reds something that's going to take the place. And so why do I think that the name would have red in it? Simply because I think that just it sounds more like Redskins, and some people may hate that it sounds like Redskins. Me personally, I think that if you're going to do a rebrand, because none of the fans really were very happy about having to drop the Washington Redskins name anyway. And so, with that being said, I think that you're probably going to have a lot more people being on board with another rebrand that has the name with red something in it. Now, what would that something be? Now, of course, a lot of people loved Red Wolves. A lot of people really got into Red Hogs. Some were just hogs. And then, of course, you had people who really got into the Red Tails. Now, recently, I know that I think it was Rick Snyder who had posted something, and this has been like a couple of months back. But he posted something on his Twitter about red tail hawks that were actually found quite a bit in around the DMV area. And so red tail hawks are a huge part of the area. And a lot of people were commenting on how, well, red wolves are indigenous to this, part of the country. And it sounds cooler. I have to admit, red wolves sounds pretty cool to me. I would go with it. And then, of course, the red-tailed hawks. At first, I was like, I don't know about red-tailed hawks. I think it needs to either be red tails or red hawks. Red tails, of course, that could have a double meaning. That could, be part of the men who, I think it was the men out of the Georgia sec of was the Air Force, but also the bird, the hawk, the red-tailed hawk, and so I think if you named them the red-tailed hawks, of course you know exactly what they're talking about. But I think that name is a little too long. I think it has to be red hawks, red tails. Or, if you want to go with tradition of the hogs, and there's been a lot of arguments over that. Like, none of the newer fans, the younger fans, give one whoop about the offensive line from the 1980s. And so they're like, why do we even worry about having this glorification of a hog? And I think unless you have actually lived through the glory years, you just are never really going to understand. To me personally, and I feel like that this is kind of a video or podcast that is kind of going back on what I released probably 2 years ago before we went through the big rename. But honestly, I think that personally, I do like Red Hawks. And I've been doing a lot of logo redesigns, and I'll post them on the channel for you to look at. And I'm not an artist, so don't critique me that much, okay? But I do okay. But I really liked the idea of Washington Red Hawks or Washington Red Wolves, one of those two. And I think outside of that, if it's going to be a name other than anything that you could put red in it, I think it would have to be the Warriors. Now, again, when I mentioned this on social media before, a lot of people are just like, that's never going to work because you have another professional team that has that name. And I'm like, when I go to use the example of the Arizona Cardinals and the San Francisco, not San Francisco Giants, the St. Louis Cardinals, baseball versus football. And then, of course, I used the New York Giants football and San Francisco Giants. Again, professional baseball, professional football. Suddenly, it's like, well, they had a partnership. That's the reason why. Like, Okay. And so you don't think that there can be a partnership between the Golden State Warriors with the Washington Commanders, didn't change their name to Washington Warriors. I mean, we've got people, as you know, in house that had ties to the Golden State Warriors. And so you don't think that there could be some sort of other reasoning why he was brought in, maybe to try to pick his brain as far as like, hey, what legalities would we have to go through in order to, make ourselves the Warriors as well? People seem to really be stuck on the fact that it can't be Warriors at all. And then, again, when I point out why you can have other professional teams with the same name, suddenly there's nothing to say about that. It's just, radio silence. So I would take Warriors, and I think honestly, if you are able to do that and then to get some partnerships with some of the local Native American tribes, and to where that they can get like some sort of monetary kickbacks from the team, I'm assuming that's what happens with the Florida State Seminoles with the local Seminole tribes. Then you could see the old logo coming back. I mean, basically having the Redskins back without the Redskins name. Because really, in the end, the biggest thing was Redskins was considered a racial slur. And a bunch of white liberal people told you that that's what it was. And so that's what it is, regardless of what Native Americans say. And so, honestly, with that being said, why can it not be Warriors? And why couldn't you not bring back the old logo or something similar, or maybe one of the other logos that has been in Washington's history, and roll with that? And then you would really feel like the fans are back, really back by that point, because they're backing the team that still looks like the team that they grew up rooting for. And the name may have changed somewhat, but it is except for Redskins, the Warriors, everything else is the same. Honestly, I would be okay with that. And if it's not going to be that, if we're going to stick with absolutely no Native American imagery, which I also don't agree with, because I think it's just kind of whitewashing the Native American history away from those who want to learn about it. And I think a lot of times when you have that sort of imagery within sports, it gives people a reason to want to go back and learn, okay, why are we going with this imagery? Why is this so great? And whereas once you remove Native American imagery and Native Americans from anything with sports, then suddenly people are not going to even care about Native Americans. That's my personal opinion, but usually the rule of thumb I've seen with humanity is that out of sight, out of mind, you don't even think about it. And is that really a good thing for the Native American community that, in the past has really dealt with poverty, alcoholism, and things like that? Wouldn't you want to support those communities by, maybe continuing to, have some partnerships with them, and then in exchange for that, use a Native American imagery to kind of keep them in the spotlight. Again, opinions, but overall, I had to do this podcast because I think that we're going to see something around the bend, and it could be at the point where it is when we announce a new stadium. And if we announce a new name with a new stadium, everything is brand new, and hopefully by that point, Washington has already been a very successful franchise again on the field. Then it could be some really exciting times, because to be honest with you, even some of the most staunchest supporters of the franchise have been indifferent with the name. I don't know of anybody who has said it was the best name they could have ever chosen. I don't think anybody. I think if there is someone out there who says that, they're probably not telling you the truth. At any rate, folks, let me know what you think in the comments. I really don't think this is a shut case at all. I think that there is something to be said about this coming to fruition at some point. I think it's going to be spoken until, I'll say this, until that Josh Harris comes out and says, we are never changing the name ever again. It's going to remain Washington Commanders. Then there's still, that door is still open. I mean, they said before that everything was on the table and they never denied another rebrand at all. So personally, I would like to see it. I mean, I would love to be able to somehow see our old logo back, because it was never offensive. It was a logo that was created by Native American artist, and it was a portrait of his grandfather. And so that is not, how could you get anything racist from the logo knowing that? Otherwise, you're just grasping at straws. So, folks, let me know what you think. Again, if you enjoyed this podcast, please, please, please give it a like, give it a share, and subscribe anywhere where you subscribe to your favorite podcasts. I'll have them out everywhere that I possibly can. Right now, we're originally from YouTube, but we're going to be moving out to some of the other podcasts. You can check us out on Podbean, but we will be adding ourselves to Apple and Spotify pretty soon as well. So that said, folks, if you enjoyed this, I will see you in the next one.